G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Thunder. Today, I've got a real treat of a game for you. Well, I've actually got two, and we're going to be flying out in the P-51D. Now, this particular P-51D is the D10, which is Ray Wetmore's P-51 Mustang. It is a premium, it sits at battle rating 4.7, and is basically identical to the P-51 D20. There's pretty much no markedly or no real difference that I can find flying this against Germans, Japanese, and I believe the Italians as well. Of course, who can forget the Italians? But one of the things that this plane is absolutely fantastic. Honestly, I've played about 4 or 5 games. Some of them don't really go your way because your team crumbles. But if you have even 2 teammates that have a sliver of intelligence, you can absolutely cream your enemies. And it is really, really fun. It's just, you just manage to pull off some of the most incredible stuff. And that is because the P-51D has 2 things going for it that we need to consider. It is fast at altitude, and it has insane energy retention. The P-51D is heavy, but it also, I believe, has laminar flow wings, which give it a decent maneuverability at higher speeds. Basically, if you're at low speed, you're a bus. But if you're at high speed, you're less of a bus. The P-51D works in a way, in my opinion, that makes it the best plane at 4.7. I would put it above the A7M. And I would also put it above all of the Spitfires at that battle rating. Yes, that is 100% right. There are no P-47s at 4.7, but I would probably put it above the P-47Ds as well. And you'll find out exactly why in a second. But for now, I'm going to be doing the single most important thing in any American prop. In fact, in any prop, full stop. It doesn't matter what nation it is, whether it's American, British, Japanese, Russian. The thing that I'm going to do is climb. I'm going to put my plane off to the side a little bit and climb. Because the climbing is what makes any prop plane good. If you're going to get any energy at all in a prop plane, the best way to do it is by gaining altitude. You see, if we go into physics a little bit, you have 2 types of energy when you're dealing with aircraft. You have potential energy, which we can just call altitude. Basically, the more altitude you have, the more energy you have. And you also have kinetic energy, which is the energy of, motion. So, the faster you are, the more speed you have, obviously, and the more kinetic energy you have. So, in order to have an energy advantage, which means basically that you are able to separate yourself from your opponent to give you enough distance to comfortably engage them later, or you can ignore them, you can dive on them when they're not looking, or most importantly, they can't catch you. You need to have an energy advantage, and this energy advantage is crucial in planes that have good energy retention, meaning that in a dive, they gain energy quickly, and in a zoom climb, they will store energy better than other planes. A plane like a Zero, you can dive to 600 kilometers per hour, and then you can pull back up, but you won't regain the same amount of potential energy or altitude as your opponent in a P-51 Mustang. And this is exactly what we're going to exploit in the P-51. In my opinion, the P-51 is the perfect example of this because it can do a little bit of everything. Obviously, it's not a thoroughbred P-47 that is practically only good for boom and zoom. It's also not a Spitfire, which is more geared towards the sort of turning engagement and, the turn and burn style of gameplay. The P-51 is still geared towards energy fighting, but it can be used extremely well as a boom and zoomer. And in fact, if you're starting off, learning how to boom and zoom is probably one of the things that you will need to master. It's quite simple. you gain altitude. You get to, for example, the P-51 does really well above 4,500 meters. If you can put it above that altitude, if you can go to 6K, anywhere above your enemy. So you can see this Ki-61 below me. I have an energy advantage over him because no matter how much he tries, he cannot pitch up to me. Even as I'm sitting here in almost level flight. Well, it's a bit of like a 10-degree climb. It's not really that much of a, much of a stretch. I'm going to try and keep as much energy above my opponents as possible. And you can see here, none of the Japanese planes have climbed. I am above all of these ones here. You can see an A7M that is looking a little bit worrying. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put myself a little bit further up and convert that speed into altitude, which the P-51 does quite well. And look at that. The A7M just cannot pitch up to me. He's climbing and he's very, very slow, and I'm going to use that while he's slow, pop a little bit of flaps, quickly burn a little bit of energy, and quickly get onto his 6, a burst of 50 cals, and would you look at that, he's pretty much dead. Immediately, I'm not going to engage any other targets. I'm going to go up for a little bit of altitude, and then I'm going to cross over a little bit because I think maybe, I can engage someone, but I'm going to wait for the A6Ms to move. And notice how I go for the one at the rear. The one at the rear is the one that you should be going for. It doesn't matter what plane you're engaging, whether it's in jet combat or in prop combat, but if you are going to engage a conga line of enemies, go for the one at the back, because basically, if you go for the one at the front, you'll probably slot in front of someone else's guns and get shot down. Notice here also how I've managed to retain a lot of my speed, and we're slowly going to force the Japanese planes down. We're just going to keep boom and zooming them. They're going to have to keep evading, keep turning, and you can see here, this A6M5 is pretty much doing that. He's realized, well, I can't fly in a straight line anymore, I have to put it into a dive. And that is progressively wearing down his energy. And because I have better energy retention, I am going to have the better advantage. And all American planes share this feature over the Japanese, except perhaps maybe some of the Ki-84s and maybe some of the J2Ms. But for the most part, you're better off boom and zooming. You can see here now, we've got a low altitude turn fight that the Japanese can engage in, but at the same time, we have so much energy. All of us, our whole team has conserved our energy well enough that the Japanese are right where we want them. Have a look at the amount of Japanese planes in this little circle. It's turning into a furball, and if you're disciplined enough, unlike a couple of our team members here, you can absolutely shred them to pieces. You can see I'm going to put myself into a dive for that A6M. Another one turns out, I go for the turn. I'm not going to commit to that. I'm going to keep my energy, and then I'm going to put myself into a vertical, convert that speed back into altitude. And there we go. We're going to have it again. And I see that J2M, and all I have to do is extend. All I have to do is extend because my energy retention is just that good. You can see that he's going to get distracted or he's just not going to pay attention to the furball, and I have all these zeros to myself now. I could go and get every single one of these zeros if I wanted to, but I'm going to be a little bit patient here. You can see I'm going to put that last amount of speed into altitude, and a couple of zeros are now stalling out for me. They're actually stalled. They're below 150 kilometers per hour. And you can see I just put 50 cals into them and there's no problem. A teammate also does that, and we have a couple of zeros dead straight away. Really, really easy, really, really simple. I set another one on fire with the 50 cals. Keep the plane level and fast. And look at this. The furball that was something like 10 planes has now been reduced to 5. Make that 4. They're all screwed. The Japanese planes do not stand a chance now. P-47 comes in, absolutely smashes him, 850 cals. There's no way you're escaping that when you don't have the energy. Ki-61 also comes in. I don't really manage to get many shots, but it's okay because we have another whole bunch of teammates full of energy, ready to pounce on the Japanese planes at a moment's notice. And there it is. This is the absolute carnage you can just afflict on your enemies when you have an altitude advantage. It is so excruciatingly important in props to have an altitude or at least an energy advantage. This is just the perfect example. This is the best example I could give you, and Ray Wetmore's P-51 Mustang is one of the best ways to exploit that. Obviously, if you're looking for a tech tree equivalent, P-51 D5 and P-51 D30 are also extremely good at this. You've also got Corsairs, you've also got P-47s, you've got the Cannon Stang if you really want, but that's not quite as good at it. The P-38s are also extremely good, and honestly, if you get them all spaded, you're going to have a really good time. Now, that all works well and good. You might be thinking, yeah, sure, but what if I don't have the altitude advantage? And this raises an important question. You're not always going to have said altitude advantage. You're not always going to have this massive, easy time just clubbing enemy props. And that's extremely true. But you can see here, in the footage that I'm going to show you now, you can do this at low altitude as well. You just have to be a little bit smarter. You can see there's a 205 and he's going for one of my friendlies. He doesn't see me because of the spotting system. Yes, that's probably a thing. And there I go. I'm keeping my speed. So, if you don't have the altitude, that's exactly what you do. You keep your speed. You don't drop below 400 kilometers per hour. In fact, you set a speed and you say, you know what, I'm not going to drop below this and this altitude. And you keep it. And that is the way that you win these types of dogfights. This TAR 154 has gone and pretty much sacrificed himself. He's gone and made a sacrifice to the gods, and the gods happen to be the 50 cal gods. So I get myself a couple of nice blazing fires. And immediately after that, I'm going to put myself up into a vertical. And now a G55S comes out of the clouds. The vertical I'm going to put myself up into, in this case, is not going to be that high because I need to keep speed. Speed is your life if you don't have altitude. And if you need speed, the best way to get it is with altitude. So that is why I always recommend climbing. You can see this G55S is now going to dive underneath me. I'm going to get a couple of shots, and I'm not going to follow. I need the speed, and I can't sacrifice any more altitude to get that. I can see that he's been distracted now. He's going for the Hellcat, and this is my chance. But the ME410 is also coming in, so I'm going to try and pick that guy off, because the ME410, whilst it's less of a threat, if I can get rid of it there and then, that's probably a better win for us. And you can see the G55S is now going to come and dive on me, but then go back for the Hellcat again. So this Hellcat is doing his best to bait me. The Hellcat actually turns better than the G55S. The only issue is that it loses too much speed too quickly. So if a G55S is clever, he'll energy trap them most of the time. But you can see here, the G55S has put himself into a really crappy situation. And because we have a good set of teamwork going on, I'm able to just commit to this G55. I put myself up into a vertical before I dive back onto him and make sure to store as much energy as possible, release it, and there he goes. The 410 comes back, and now I'm in a situation where I don't have to boom and zoom because I can turn fight things. I can turn fight a 410. It's no problem. All I need is, just a bit of elevator, because the 410 is a heavier plane. The P-51 is actually lighter and turns better. But you can see in this situation, if you have a couple of people working together, and maybe you have a couple of people that turn with, a bit more proficiency than a P-51, you can make a low altitude engagement work. I don't suggest doing it all the time though. Go for your altitude first, and use this as a last-ditch solution. So, the P-51 D10. I believe I bought this one with my own money. And honestly, I think it's worth it. I really, really like the P-51Ds. They've honestly given me a lot of joy, to be honest. I will honestly say that they have been a joy to play over the past year. The P-51D is just fantastic. I think I used to, really suck. I used to have the D5 and I used to not know what I was doing. Then I got my hands on the D30. I spaded it. I had a really, really good time playing the D30. And then I got my hands on the other two. And honestly, they're all fantastic planes. So you can see, I've just managed to pretty much overcome an enemy with an inferior position because you work together as a team. And that's the most critical thing for American teams. Use your teammates. Work together. Bait for each other. It works out in the long run. Everyone wins because you end up winning the whole match. And in this match, I managed to earn myself 130 or 140k Silver Lions. It's incredible what you can do with a little bit of teamwork. And this is exactly what I'm going to keep doing. I've really been trying to stress with the channel over the last few months last few days, weeks, something like that. Ever since the couple of videos that I made on Jets, doing a little bit of a, bit of a critique, a bit of a rant, if you will. I've just been trying to get everyone to work as a team again. Honestly, considering your teammates and working with everyone, it's not always going to work. But in some cases, it will be extremely rewarding. And honestly, it'll be the thing that just makes you go, God damn, I had such a great time playing this game. Other times, yes, it will make you rip your hair out because, it's the internet and people are pretty unreliable. But at the same time, if you can help a teammate out, it's always worth giving it a go. Now, in this situation here I'm going to show you, I'm not in an energy advantage at all. In fact, I'm at an energy disadvantage in a 1 versus 1. You see, that Hellcat is all good and well, but I'm pretty much convinced that he's going to go down. So what I need to do is I need to get there before he gets shot down. And so I'm going to turn around. I still have 400 bullets left between 250 cals. And so I'm going to do my best. I'm going to try and save him because that's what a good teammate does. And if he is saved, then that means that we have an extra teammate. But unfortunately, he gets taken out. I don't manage to reach him in time, and the other Hellcat is off strafing ground targets. So I'm going to do a little bit of revenge. Yet, I can't see him. Well, I can sort of. He's sort of, ducking up and down through the clouds, and you can see that he's actually got a fair amount of energy by the way that he's moving. He's very fast, his movements up and down are quite high, and you can see I'm just about to get the jump on him. I have roughly the same amount of energy, and you can see there, he puts himself into a little bit of a turn. I'm not going to commit to that, I'm going to go straight into a vertical. This means that I store my energy into altitude and then change it back again. I put myself in a good position using a little bit of flaps, and you can see that the BF-109, why did I say JU-88, has put himself in a weird situation. Now, because the P-51 in a turn bleeds a lot of energy and is a whale at low speed, I can use that as my advantage to drop before he does. He's trying to keep his speed, and it looks like he's run out of it. I managed to get a fire on his engine, and he's leaking oil. That's it for him. But ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly what you can do in the P-51. You can actually have some really good dogfights if you're disciplined enough, but I would always recommend boom and zoom first. Boom and zoom first, dogfight later, and you will actually have the best time you will ever have in War Thunder. I promise you, it is, for me, the best. Anyway, ladies and gents, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you next time.